Hello and welcome to another edition of Only in Illinois, your weekly video recap from Reboot Illinois. I'm Madeline Dubeck, here with Matt Dietrich, and we are on the cusp of a new year. And unfortunately, at the moment, it's looking a lot like the old year when not much happened. The first year of the governorship of Bruce Rauner, Matt, what do you make of it all?
Well, it
was eventful.
It was extremely
if not
eventful.
Productive.
We haven't had a year like this in Illinois politics in a long, long time. And it really started with a bang back in January. You'll recall that during the 2014 election, he had a near miss in the Republican primary because of his union bashing.
Right.
So his union bashing pretty much disappeared through the election.
If you weren't paying attention to the primary, you might have really been caught off guard.
Boom, as soon as he got into office in January, first thing out of the gate, he's issuing an executive order that tried to do away with the fair share fees that non-union members pay.
Let me tell you, it's anything but fair. State employees who say they want to opt out still must pay, on average, $577 per year to a union they don't want to support. This morning, I signed an executive order that ends unfair share fees.
Right.
That really started a couple of months of really a return to the old Bruce Rauner and just taking after the unions and talking about their corrupt deals with, in the
and then eventually tried to go after collective bargaining. He went around the state and tried to drum up support from local governments, and union members would turn out at these meetings, and it was kind of a clash of some pretty big powers.
And that was pretty much the first 6 months of his governorship. And then suddenly
except for the Good Friday massacre.
They united, and Governor Rauner was on the Senate floor shaking hands with John Cullerton and thanking him.
Yeah.
And then it was only a few weeks later that everything had fallen apart.
And that's kind of when the trust really deteriorated between the Democrats and the Republicans.
And then we had a long series of hearings and a long series of fights where the Democrats would hold these committee hearings and they would invite people from the administration to come, and the administration people would not show up, and one of Rauner's top aides would send very sarcastic letters, and so that kind of set the tone.
Or they would show up on occasion and just argue and argue and argue.
But even before summer arrived, one of the big news events of 2015 came in May from the Illinois Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court said that a pension reform bill that had been passed in 2013 was unconstitutional, and basically said, we're going to have to pay everything we owe in pensions.
And since then, there's been no real movement or discussion about what to do about that either.
No.
So we still have the worst pension debt in the nation. It's gobbling up more and more of a budget if we ever get one.
Yeah.
And whether it does or not, it's still gobbling up a lot of money because the law requires that gets paid. So that sort of was resolved, but really not resolved because nothing's been done to address that.
The Supreme Court ruling came out in May. That was moving up to the end of the legislative session.
Right.
And when they were supposed to have a budget on May 31st, and of course that date came and went, and then the new fiscal year started on July 1st, and the big question was, will government shut down? So then we had a series of court battles that kept government running, but has now, 4 months later, 5 months later, we're watching as social services slowly lose funding, and universities fear that how are we going to keep the doors open, and students are wondering how I'm going to get through this semester because I can't get my math grant
without my money, from the state. So it's getting to be, lots of people have said, to the point of not being able to be repaired, some of this social services and money that gets provided to keep the social safety net in
Right.
place in Illinois, and kids in school and faculty members being paid at universities. So that's continues to be a dire situation.
Yeah.
Also a very difficult year for the mayor of the city of Chicago and the Cook County State's Attorney. I'm speaking of Rahm Emanuel and Anita
Right.
Alvarez. The Chicago Police Department Commissioner lost his job, Gary McCarthy, after a pretty gruesome video showed 17-year-old Laquan McDonald being shot by a police officer with his back to the police officer 16 times in 15 seconds. And just a horrible thing to have to watch, certainly for his family, but for everyone. Provoked generally peaceful demonstrations in the streets that
Yes.
have gone on for a month now. We'll see what happens from here. More videos have come out. The
Well-
mayor continues to try to get
And-
things back on track, but he's about to head into a new year with no aid from state government and a teacher strike looming, the second one.
Right, and you know, another thing that the Laquan McDonald, the whole case really has been fomented by there is just an attitude of secrecy in Illinois government
Right.
at all levels, and we've preached about this everywhere in state government, in city, county governments, you name it. The idea in Illinois among so many people in government is that the Freedom of Information Act is the place you go to find the rule that lets you keep something secret. Why did it take 13 months for this dash cam video to come out? Why did it take 13 months for any charges against the police officer? Why didn't we know about this sooner? And it's because, and the only reason.
And what did the mayor know and when?
Right, and it's this whole kind of this toxic atmosphere of secrecy,
Right.
that really exacerbated this situation. Not that there's ever that
Right.
I mean, this was going to be horrible no matter what if the video had come out the next day, but the fact that it was kept under wraps and the fact that it took a private citizen, independent journalist to file a lawsuit to get it says a lot about how Illinois, whether it's in this case Chicago City, but it's everywhere in Illinois, we just don't have a very high regard for freedom of information.
And so in the new year, we can certainly hope that our elected officials resolve to stand in the sunshine and operate in the sunshine a little bit more transparently. But to end on a more hopeful note, I guess it's good to see people taking to the streets peacefully and in a civil manner to demand better from their elected officials.
And on another somewhat positive note, as the year comes to an end, after 6 months of never meeting together about
Right.
the state budget, finally, the Governor Rauner and the 4 leaders of the General Assembly have gotten together repeated times in December to actually talk about the issues and be in the same room together. And at least they're talking about it. I don't know if anything's going to come of it,
Right.
but it's something.
We will keep you posted. Happy New Year. We'll see you on the next edition of Only in Illinois.